The miracle doctor won't be a kept man. My heart belongs ashore. Chapter 1061. The two were startled and quickly turned around to look behind them. They found nothing there, which made them shiver, break into a cold sweat, and even think of something terrifying: ghosts. Especially for Konta, the thought of Kiran's body being frozen filled him with inexplicable fear and dread. Could it be that Kiran was acting and had followed them here? Konta was very worried about being killed by Kiran. As the president of Sunland's martial arts association, Okajima, who had some martial arts skills and had seen many martial artists, had a lot of experience. He turned to the darkness and said, "Kanpei Ichiro, please come out and meet us." Hearing this, Konta snapped back to reality and quickly looked into the darkness, respectfully saying, "Kanpei, we are here to visit you." As soon as they spoke, a cold wind blew through the air. Then, in front of them stood a person wrapped in black clothing, with their face covered by black cloth, making it impossible to see their features. Seeing a figure like this suddenly appear in the darkness was like seeing a ghost, making both men feel a bone-chilling cold. However, their faces soon showed joy and anticipation, because they sensed the strong aura emanating from Kanpei. The stronger the person, the more likely they were to kill Kiran. "Kanpei Ichiro, sorry to disturb you. We have something urgent to discuss," Okajima said, smiling. "Come inside and we'll talk," Kanpei replied, walking inside. Okajima and Konta were overjoyed but quickly widened their eyes. They saw the door open automatically as Kanpei approached it. The door was not electric, and the force opening it seemed to come naturally from Kanpei's body. Feeling Kanpei's powerful aura, the two men exchanged excited glances and clenched their fists. They seemed to see Kanpei defeating Kiran, beating him into submission. They felt more hopeful about Kanpei as Sunland's #1 martial artist, especially considering Kiran was already injured. This added to their anticipation. Following Kanpei, they entered the cold room, which was oddly out of place for the season, causing goosebumps. Kanpei acted as if he didn't notice the cold, naturally sitting down and asking, "Do you want me to compete with Kiran?" Konta looked at Okajima, waiting for him to speak. Okajima sat up straight and respectfully said, "Kanpei, Kiran's battle with our ninja association last time caused heavy losses and made us lose all our dignity." Kanpei remained silent, waiting for Okajima to continue. After a brief pause, Okajima said, "Kiran's high-profile return means that if we in Sunland's martial arts community cannot defeat him, our reputation will be ruined both domestically and internationally." Konta quickly added, "Kanpei, you are known as Sunland's #1 martial artist. You are our only hope now." Kanpei laughed lightly, showing contempt in his eyes. "Someone dares to humiliate the people of Sunland? They don't know the meaning of death." Hearing this, Okajima and Konta's eyes filled with joy. "That Kiran is extremely arrogant. Today at the airport he even beat up Konta," Okajima said, faking a look of extreme anger. "The scars on my face and body are all from him," Konta added, looking pitiful. "For a strong martial artist to humiliate ordinary people is disgraceful," Kanpei said coldly, denouncing Kiran. "Kiran has no martial ethics," Konta exclaimed angrily, trying to make Kanpei hate Kiran more and be more willing to act. "Where is Kiran now? When do you want me to fight him?" Kanpei asked. Hearing that Kanpei agreed, the two were ecstatic. "I just heard Kiran went to the Pagoda of Nations, caused a commotion there, and was later carried back," Konta said. Kanpei's body moved slightly upon hearing this, clearly surprised but pleased that Kiran was injured. Okajima noticed Kanpei's reaction and said with a sneer, "Even if Kiran were healthy, he wouldn't be a match for you." Kanpei didn't respond, but his face showed pride and satisfaction. "However, Kiran has infuriated all of us. If we can't resolve this soon, we will face significant public pressure," Okajima said, cunningly giving Kanpei a reason to attack while Kiran was down. Kanpei naturally wanted to take advantage of Kiran's injuries to secure an easy victory and boost his reputation. "You can decide the details." "I'll follow your arrangements," Kanpei said, pretending not to care. "That's great. With you taking action, we will surely win, reclaim our martial spirit, and showcase Sunland's martial prowess," Okajima said, presenting the match as a righteous battle for honor. Kanpei nodded slightly, acting indifferent, pretending his only goal was to kill Kiran. "I've been humiliated today and can't bear it anymore. I want Kiran dead," Konta said, making the situation clear. "How about tomorrow?" Okajima asked. Kanpei pretended to think for a moment, then asked, "Will Kiran be able to fight me tomorrow? He represents the top martial artist in Dragonland." "I'm sure he will," Okajima said slyly. "I'll follow your arrangement. Tomorrow night," Kanpei agreed, closing his eyes. Okajima and Konta understood and bowed slightly before leaving. News of Sunland's top martial artist challenging Kiran quickly spread online and in both countries. Meanwhile, Kiran was already frozen, unable to move, completely unconscious. Chapter 1062. Yvonne Quinn contacted Jenny Leo immediately after arriving in Sunland. Jenny was already aware of Kanpei Ichiro's challenge to Kiran York and was frantic. Kiran's survival was already tenuous. How could he possibly fight? When Yvonne called, Jenny, seeing a glimmer of hope, quickly answered, "Sister Evie, have you arrived?" "I'm on my way to the Nagoya hotel. How is Kiran?" Yvonne asked urgently. "Not good at all. His body seems to be covered in a layer of ice as if he's slowly freezing," Jenny said anxiously, looking at Kiran. Yvonne's mind buzzed with worry, her eyes reflecting her anxiety. What's infuriating is that Sunland issued a challenge demanding a duel between their top fighter, Kanpei Ichiro, and Kiran tonight, Jenny fumed. Yvonne was equally furious. How can Kiran fight in his condition? We refuse the challenge. Jenny echoed her frustration. They know Kiran is injured, so they're taking advantage of his weakness. Yvonne, even more angered, added, "These Sunland people are shameless to the core." The driver, a Sunland citizen, glanced back angrily upon hearing Yvonne's comment but was immediately silenced by her fierce rebuke. "Keep your eyes on the road, or you'll regret it." Scared, the driver kept quiet, focusing on the drive. Half an hour later, Yvonne arrived at the Nagoya hotel and entered Kiran's room. She shivered as if stepping into an ice cellar. Having lost her dragon vein power, Yvonne had reverted to needing heavy winter clothing to stay warm. Despite wearing a down jacket, the cold in the room pierced her to the bone. Jenny looked pale, wrapped in a blanket and visibly using her dragon vein power to shield Kiran. Kiran lay unconscious, like a lifeless figure. "Sister Evie, you're here," Jenny said, her eyes teary with relief. Assessing the dire situation, Yvonne asked, "Have you tried any solutions?" Knowing Yvonne was displeased but not angry, Jenny quickly explained, "I tried transferring my dragon vein power to him, but it was useless. Even warming him with my body didn't work." Yvonne's expression softened. "It seems the cold from the blood he absorbed is too intense for him to handle. Please do something, Sister Evie. I don't know why Lillian asked you to come, but I'm out of options," Jenny pleaded, her voice choked with emotion. Yvonne moved to Kiran's side and gently touched his icy skin. The cold numbed her instantly. She quickly channeled her energy to resist it, and the cold seemed to merge with the chill already inside her. Feeling a strange mix of excitement and hope, Yvonne said, "It appears Kiran's coldness is similar to mine. I can handle it." Jenny, puzzled, asked, "What do you mean?" "Transfer all of Kiran's cold to me," Yvonne instructed. Jenny was shocked. "How can that work? You're already weak. You won't survive this." Yvonne, despite her uncertainty, was determined to save Kiran. "No time to waste. Transfer it to me, and I'll find a way to absorb it." Knowing Yvonne's deep love for Kiran, Jenny complied. "Thank you, Sister Evie." Jenny helped the rigid Kiran sit up. Yvonne held his hands while Jenny placed hers on his back, trying to transfer her power to Kiran. However, the cold inside Kiran seemed impenetrable. "Keep going. We must transfer all his cold to me," Yvonne urged, her desperation evident. Jenny tried harder, but her energy seemed futile against Kiran's intense cold. After a while, with no progress and Kiran growing colder, Yvonne, frustrated and helpless, could no longer feel their love spell connection. Jenny, nearing panic as the duel time approached, had an idea. "I'll use Little Mischief's force inside of me to bring Lady Meiji's lifeblood into your body," she suggested. Though unsure of what Jenny meant, Yvonne agreed. "Try anything. I'm ready for anything." Yvonne's eyes reflected her unwavering determination to save Kiran no matter the cost. Moved by Yvonne's resolve, Jenny gathered her power into her inner force. Sensing the strength, her Little Mischief began to respond, slowly emerging from Jenny. Seeing this, Yvonne was both curious and hopeful. Jenny then pressed her hands on Kiran's back, and Little Mischief entered his body. Kiran's frozen body turned red, glowing like the sun. Chapter 1063. Jenny Leo and Yvonne Quinn watched expectantly as Kiran York's body began to change. The red hue on his skin grew more vibrant, and it seemed as if red droplets were about to fall from him. His previously icy body started to warm up gradually. Both women felt a sense of relief. However, Yvonne continued to hold Kiran's hands tightly, hoping that the cold within him would transfer to her and relieve his pain. Jenny continuously channeled her internal energy through Little Mischief, hoping to resolve the cold. Just as they thought Little Mischief might succeed, Kiran's body suddenly began to shake violently, like a tree branch in a storm. Yvonne, holding Kiran's hands, struggled to maintain her grip. Jenny, who was sending internal energy into Kiran's back, also found herself being thrown around, indicating a great force at work. Both women were tense and anxious. Suddenly, little mischief burst out of Kiran's body like a flash of lightning. The once lively and red creature now appeared white and frozen, shocking Jenny and Yvonne. Little mischief, now ice-cold, was jumping around in distress. Jenny had intended for it to absorb Lady Meiji's vital blood, but now it seemed little mischief had become another Kiran. Jenny felt her own energy depleting, and it seemed like little mischief could freeze to death at any moment. You need to control little mischief and transfer it into my body, Yvonne decided, lunging to catch little mischief. Sensing Yvonne's aura, little mischief tried to escape, but Jenny grabbed it from behind and pushed it into Yvonne's embrace. Yvonne felt like she was holding a block of ancient ice, losing all sensation and falling to the ground with a thud. Her hair turned white, and her face became as pale as paper, devoid of color. "Sister Evie, are you okay?" Jenny shook Yvonne's arm, shouting loudly, but Yvonne remained unresponsive as if frozen to death. Jenny was filled with anxiety. At that moment, little mischief suddenly jumped out. It had regained its original color but was terrified, hiding inside Jenny and refusing to come out. Without little mischief's power, Yvonne became even weaker, on the brink of death. Jenny was truly desperate. Kiran's life was uncertain, and Yvonne seemed close to death. She shook Yvonne's arm, shouting, "Sister Evie, wake up!" However, Yvonne did not respond and seemed to stop breathing. Jenny, on the verge of tears, turned to Kiran, who lay unconscious and pale, also seemingly near death. "Kiran, wake up! Sister Evie is in danger!" Jenny shouted, but Kiran, like Yvonne, did not react. Jenny, feeling helpless, had no power to save either of them. She laid both of them on the bed and covered them with a blanket, sitting at the bedside, unsure of their fate. Kiran appeared to be in a deep sleep, dreaming of Lady Meiji. In his dream, she was a cheerful and innocent little girl. The scenes were beautiful but quickly turned somber as Lady Meiji became mournful. He saw her beloved man die in battle, leaving her in endless pain and solitude at home. Finally, he witnessed Lady Meiji die alone, her body decomposing into bones and disappearing. Throughout this transformation, Kiran sensed an overwhelming hatred rising in Lady Meiji's heart, burning fiercely. Though he wanted to help her, he was powerless. Suddenly, a huge, terrifying face appeared before him, seemingly about to devour him. Kiran woke up abruptly, finding himself on the bed. "Kiran, you're finally awake," Jenny cried, her eyes filled with tears. Kiran, bewildered, felt an icy presence beside him. Turning, he saw Yvonne with white hair and a pale face, and asked instinctively, "Was I unconscious for a long time?" "You've been unconscious since returning from the Pagoda of Nations. I had to inform Sister Lillian, who sent Yvonne to save you. She absorbed Lady Meiji's vital blood, which is why she's like this now," Jenny explained briefly. Kiran's face grew serious. He remembered the pain of swallowing Lady Meiji's vital blood, a cold that pierced his soul, rendering him unconscious despite his attempts to resist with internal energy. Taking a deep breath, he said, "I'm fine now. Let me try to heal Yvonne." Jenny shook her head. "You can't heal her now." Kiran didn't ask why. He already knew that even he couldn't control the vital blood, let alone Yvonne, whose body was already weak. Ignoring his fatigue, Kiran began transferring his internal energy into Yvonne, hoping to alleviate her condition. Yvonne did not resist, understanding Kiran's urgency and concern. Kiran channeled his energy into Yvonne for over an hour until he collapsed from exhaustion. Though Yvonne did not wake up, the cold in her body seemed to lessen. At that moment, Park Sung-nam knocked on the bedroom door. The duel time with Kanpei Ichiro was approaching. Chapter. Jenny Leo was about to check Kiran York's condition when she heard a knock at the door. She quickly went to open it, finding Park Sung-nam standing there with a respectful smile. Despite her irritation, knowing it was about the duel with Kanpei Ichiro, she listened. "Miss Jenny, the time for the duel between young Master York and Kanpei Ichiro is approaching. Should we arrange for a car to depart?" Park Sung-nam asked politely. Jenny's face darkened. "We won't duel. Those Sunland people are scheming and shameless." Park Sung-nam froze, his expression tense and panicked. Kiran, lying weakly on the bed but still conscious, called out, "Park Sung-nam, make the preparations. I'll be out soon." "Yes, young Master York," Park Sung-nam responded joyfully. Jenny was frustrated. She closed the door with a thud and quickly returned to the bedroom. "You're too weak." "Fighting now is suicidal," she admonished Kiran. This is about our nation's dignity. I cannot back down, Kiran replied weakly, struggling to stand. Jenny, worried, tried to stop him, but Kiran's legs gave out, and he almost fell. She hurried to support him, her face filled with anxiety. Take care of Yvonne. I will face the duel alone, Kiran insisted. I can't let you go alone. I'll go with you. I'll fight if I have to, Jenny declared. Kiran waved her away, but his strength failed, and his hand dropped. Jenny's concern grew. I'll be fine. Let me rest for a while, Kiran reassured her with a faint smile. Jenny, tears in her eyes, helped him to the sofa, and then returned to tend to Yvonne, deciding she would accompany Kiran regardless. Kiran focused on restoring his energy. 5 minutes later, Park Sung-nam knocked again. Kiran, trembling, got up and walked to the door, nearly falling as he opened it. Seeing Kiran's state, Park Sung-nam hesitated. Young Master York, are you? Jenny, crying, ran out. I'm going with you, she insisted. This is a man's matter, about the dignity of Dragonsland men versus Sunland men. You don't need to go, Kiran said firmly, though weakly. Jenny, touched but worried, knew Kiran wouldn't change his mind. She nodded reluctantly. Kiran and Park Sung-nam left the room, Kiran refusing Park's support. He walked unsteadily down the hotel hallway, his legs weak and face pale as paper. They headed to the duel site, the pagoda of Nation Square. Meanwhile, Kanpei Ichiro and Okajima watched the hotel's surveillance, eager to see Kiran's condition. Seeing him so weak, they were overjoyed, believing he would surely die. A crowd of Sunland people gathered at the pagoda of Nation Square, anticipating the duel. The square symbolized their past glory and honor. Defeating Kiran, representing the strongest power, would be a great triumph for Sunland. As the head of the Sunland Martial Arts Association, Okajima was particularly eager. In the car, Park Sung-nam watched Kiran through the rearview mirror. Kiran, eyes closed, focused on regaining his strength. Park, anxious, wanted to advise against the duel but dared not speak. Stop looking. This duel is necessary. It's about the dignity of Dragonsland and all the countries Sunland has bullied, Kiran said with determination. Park Sung-nam felt a surge of guilt. I'm sorry, young Master York. We couldn't remove the stones from the pagoda of nations. I need some quiet, Kiran replied calmly. Park fell silent. Kiran used the quiet time to stabilize his energy. Despite the danger, he knew he had to fight for his nation's dignity. He admired those willing to sacrifice for their country, like Axel Yanes and others, and sought to emulate their bravery. Reaching the pagoda of Nation Square, they were met by a sea of people. Reporters eagerly awaited to interview them. Suddenly, Kiran felt a surge of instability in his energy and coughed up blood, his body growing even weaker, on the verge of collapse. Chapter 1065. Young Master York, Park Sung-nam shouted anxiously. The driver quickly stopped the car. Park Sung-nam and the driver jumped out and rushed to the back seat, opening the door. Though Kiran York wasn't unconscious, his face was pale, and he seemed entirely drained of energy. He attempted to step out of the car, but his body was too weak. Finally, with the help of Park Sung-nam and the driver, he managed to get out. The Sunland spectators, seeing Kiran's frail state, were elated as if witnessing his imminent demise. Cameras and flashbulbs flickered incessantly while some reporters excitedly spoke into their microphones. Kiran York has arrived in Sunland. This time he will duel with our top fighter Konta. Last time, Kiran single-handedly challenged our ninja association, making a grand spectacle. He represents the pinnacle of martial arts from Dragonsland. Such a formidable Kiran, now here to challenge our top fighter, will certainly bring great trouble. This will be a fierce life-and-death battle. Despite recognizing Kiran's weakened state, the Sunland reporters deliberately avoided mentioning it. Instead, they lavished praise on him, intending to frame any potential defeat as a failure of his own prowess. One reporter's approach quickly set the tone, and soon, all the reporters followed suit, praising Kiran as a formidable yet vulnerable opponent. Those familiar with Sunland people knew they rarely praised their adversaries unless they were trying to frame a victory as more impressive by downplaying the opponent's condition. Park Sung-nam, listening to their words, was furious. He couldn't help but shout, "Stop being so shameless! Young Master York is gravely injured, but still bravely facing the duel." "Is Kiran injured? Who could possibly hurt him?" "We can't see it," came a mocking voice from Konta Yasuda, who approached Kiran with a sarcastic expression. Konta's face and body were still covered in bandages, looking both terrifying and menacing. Seeing Kiran's weakened state, he was elated, barely restraining his urge to clap in glee. Feigning praise, Konta said, "Mr. Kiran, your martial arts are extraordinary. Even a woman by your side could injure me and my guards to this extent." He looked around, adding, "Everyone observe. Kiran must be pretending to be weak as part of some strategy." The reporters, catching on, chimed in, "Young Master York, are you pretending to be injured because you fear our top fighter Kanpei Ichiro? As Dragonsland's top martial artist, using such a tactic is beneath you and makes you contemptible. We always thought Dragonsland warriors adhered to honorable tactics. Seeing young Master York stoop to such tricks is disappointing." Konta's misleading comment led the reporters to deride Kiran, painting him as deceitful. But Kiran, struggling even to breathe, ignored them, focusing solely on restoring his strength. Lady Meiji's vital blood felt like a relentless vortex draining his energy. His efforts to heal Yvonne had further depleted him, leaving him extremely weak. Speaking was exhausting, so he stayed silent, moving forward with Park Sung-nam's help. Despite not being from Dragonsland, Park Sung-nam deeply admired Kiran. Hearing the Sunland reporter's insults, he seethed with anger, wanting to retaliate but unable to act. Sunland reporters and Konta, seeing Kiran's silence, intensified their taunts as he made his way to the pagoda of Nations Square. The square was packed with people, though the center remained empty. Kanpei Ichiro sat there, illuminated by lights, exuding a mysterious aura. "You can't go further. Only Kiran is allowed in." A guard stopped Park Sung-nam at the entrance. Angry, Park Sung-nam argued, "Young Master York isn't well. We need to help him." The guard, smirking, shook his head. "No." Konta, still taunting, said, "Kiran, stop pretending. You're only making yourself look bad. Do you think we'll fall for your ruse?" "You underestimate our intelligence," another reporter sneered. Park Sung-nam wanted to defend Kiran but was stopped by Kiran's trembling hand, a sign of his frailty. Park's heart sank further. The Sunland crowd, on the other hand, buzzed with excitement, convinced they were witnessing Kiran's last moments. Kanpei Ichiro, sensing Kiran's weak aura, was thrilled, determined to kill Kiran and secure his reputation as Sunland's top fighter. "Go back," Kiran weakly told Park Sung-nam, then walked forward alone. After a few steps, Kiran wobbled, nearly falling. "Young Master York!" Park Sung-nam cried, tears streaming down. Kiran steadied himself and continued, his determination unwavering despite his frail condition. Park Sung-nam, watching Kiran's back, was moved to tears. Once enemies, now friends, he understood the true meaning of hero worship. Tonight, a new hero would emerge. Whether it was Kiran York or Kanpei Ichiro, no one knew, yet few believed it would be Kiran. Chapter 1066. Kiran York walked very slowly, his steps faltering. He moved with great difficulty, seeming like a gust of wind could blow over him. He was so weak that he barely had the strength to walk, stopping occasionally to catch his breath and adjust his energy. The Sunland spectators at the scene watched with excitement and anticipation. Sunland netizens watching the live broadcast were abuzz with comments. "Is Kiran acting again? Will he suddenly use the Dragon Soul sword like last time?" Kiran is the best actor. His acting skills are amazing. He's taking Dragonsland's hypocrisy to the extreme, trying to garner sympathy and then portray himself as a hero. The people of Sunland were criticizing Kiran, convinced he was pretending. Their true aim was to deny Kiran any chance to refuse the duel and to mock Dragonsland, creating an atmosphere for Kanpei Ichiro to kill Kiran. In contrast to the shameless Sunland people, the Dragonsland spectators were relatively calm. They could tell at a glance that Kiran was genuinely injured. The image of Kiran fearlessly battling the Sunland Ninja Association last time was still fresh in their minds. Even now, facing Sunland's top fighter, Kiran was unlikely to lose and did not need to fake anything in a live broadcast. Kiran was indeed injured, and Dragonsland's people were apprehensive, silently praying for him. Lillian Yanes and Snow Xander were watching the live broadcast together. However, Lillian considered stopping Snow from watching as she was pregnant and needed to focus on the baby's health. Snow, equally anxious, was trembling as she watched the screen. Lillian discreetly pressed a pressure point on Snow, making her faint and fall asleep. Left alone, Lillian sat in front of the TV, filled with tension and worry. Her hands clenched tightly, her eyes full of concern, unsure of the impact Lady Meiji's lifeblood would have on Kiran. Kiran continued his slow advance towards Kanpei Ichiro. Kanpei sat in the center of the square, dressed in black, resembling a sinister demon waiting to kill Kiran. Although only a few dozen meters apart, it took Kiran 5 or 6 minutes to cover the distance. When he finally reached Kanpei, his clothes were soaked with sweat, his body was extremely weak, and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. Kanpei kept his eyes closed but could sense Kiran's condition, feeling a surge of joy at this perfect opportunity to kill him. He took deep breaths to calm his excitement. Kiran stood beside Kanpei, breathing deeply to steady himself. Kanpei slowly opened his eyes, meeting Kiran's gaze with a fierce and domineering look, while Kiran's eyes appeared dazed and unfocused. "Kanpei Ichiro, don't underestimate him. He might be acting," warned Konta Yasuda from the crowd. Other Sunland people chimed in. "Be careful of his tricks. Dragon's Land people are cunning and deceitful." "Yes, be careful. His acting is too convincing. Last time with the Ninja Association, he tricked everyone by pretending." The Sunland crowd, though seemingly warning Kanpei, was actually stirring up the atmosphere against Kiran. Kiran knew their malicious intent but was too weak to argue. He focused on adjusting his energy, unable to hide his condition. Seeing Kiran genuinely struggling, Kanpei was ecstatic. "We respect heroes and proper etiquette. Since you traveled so far, I'll let you make the first 3 moves," he said loudly, addressing the crowd. Everyone witnessed that I'm letting him make the first 3 moves. Konta Yasuda enthusiastically cheered. "Kanpei Ichiro is truly Sunland's top fighter, demonstrating noble martial spirit." "Martial spirit," the crowd echoed, the square ringing with their shouts. Kanpei, filled with pride, watched Kiran, waiting for him to make a move. However, too weak to attack, Kiran stood firm. He was determined to die standing rather than live on his knees, upholding Dragon's Land's dignity. "Stop wasting words and start," Kiran said weakly. Kanpei, pretending to be sincere, replied, "We respect your martial skills and genuinely want you to attack first." He looked around, adding, "If Kiran doesn't attack, the duel is off." "Kiran, are you scared?" Konta Yasuda taunted, unwilling to cancel the duel. "Life is a play, and you're a great actor," Okajima mocked. Konta Yasuda and Okajima's comments stirred the Sunland crowd further. "Kiran, make your move. Kanpei Ichiro won't retaliate for the first 3 moves." Kanpei, becoming more arrogant, said, "Go ahead. I won't fight back for the first 3 moves. Kiran, do you have any other demands?" Konta Yasuda shouted, expressing his dissatisfaction. Kiran seemed like a coward, while Kanpei appeared noble and honorable. Despite the Sunland pride, Kiran's own pride as a Dragon's Land man flared. He wouldn't let the Sunland people's shamelessness prevail. With this resolve, he slowly raised his hand, though. Chapter 1067, Kiran York's hand was raised, but his body was trembling even more violently. His hand shook uncontrollably, like a leaf in the wind. The Sunland reporters zoomed in with their cameras, eager to capture this dramatic moment. Sunland netizens watching the live stream were ecstatic, mocking Kiran and accusing him of faking his injury. Kanpei Ichiro, seeing Kiran in this state, was filled with joy and pride. To him, Kiran was now completely useless, someone he could kill with a single finger. Kiran's hand finally landed on Kanpei, indicating for him to make a move. Even if he died, he wanted to prove he wasn't afraid. But there was no force behind the touch, as light as a child's pat on an adult. Kanpei didn't feel any pain or danger. Gleefully, he announced, "That was your first move." Breathing heavily to stabilize himself, Kiran raised his hand again and let it fall again. "That's the second move," Kanpei shouted with even more delight. Kiran lifted his hand a 3rd time, preparing for the final move. Park Sung-nam, unable to bear the Sunland people's shamelessness, shouted, "Can't you Sunland people stop being so shameless? Young Master York is gravely injured and can't compete fairly." Despite his loud voice, it was quickly drowned out by others. The Sunland people were determined to kill Kiran by any means necessary. Park Sung-nam, now furious, turned to his men and shouted, "Let's go. We'll stand and die with young Master York." His men, fired up by his words, echoed, "We'll stand and die with young Master York." They took a few steps forward but were stopped by a row of policemen who pointed their guns at them. Park Sung-nam's eyes turned red with rage, ready to fight the policemen. "No need!" Kiran's weak voice called out again. Park Sung-nam, tears in his eyes, looked at Kiran's unsteady figure and cried out, "Young Master York, if you weren't injured, killing Kanpei would be easy. These Sunland people are so shameless." "This is a fair duel. Kanpei has already let him make 3 moves," Konta Yasuda shouted angrily. "Only idiots think this is fair," Park Sung-nam retorted furiously at his former partner. Konta Yasuda glared at Park Sung-nam with intense hatred, feeling betrayed. Kiran was internally conflicted. He knew his condition was dire, and he didn't want to die. However, he was also determined to uphold Dragon's Land's dignity. His hand fell again, just as weak as before. Kanpei, ecstatic, stood up and said, "Now it's my turn." Kiran nodded slightly, unable to speak. Kanpei raised his hand and aimed a punch at Kiran's face. He knew Kiran was extremely weak and could be easily killed, but he wanted to humiliate him first. The Sunland crowd understood his intention and eagerly recorded the moment. Kiran knew what Kanpei intended, but was too weak to avoid it. He raised his hands to protect his face, refusing to be humiliated. Seeing Kiran's defensive stance, Kanpei redirected his punch towards Kiran's nose. Konta Yasuda, filled with excitement, remembered the beatings he had received and wanted to vent his frustration on Kiran. With his last bit of consciousness, Kiran tried to protect his face and dignity. He adjusted his hands to shield his nose. Bang! Kanpei's punch hit Kiran's hand hard, sending him flying. Blood spurted from his nose as he flew through the air. The Dragonsland viewers watching the live broadcast were heartbroken, many shedding tears. They didn't know what had happened but understood that Kiran must have been in trouble, or he wouldn't have been humiliated like this. Kiran, feeling dizzy and on the brink of unconsciousness, suddenly saw a vision of a young Lady Meiji. This brought him an inexplicable sense of peace, and he thought of his pregnant wife, Snow Xander. I cannot die, this thought echoed in his mind as he crashed to the ground, the impact cracking the cement of the pagoda of Nations Square. Kiran felt as if his body had shattered into pieces. Seeing Kiran's state, the Sunland crowd cheered even louder, praising Kanpei as a noble and powerful warrior. Kanpei Ichiro is a powerful man. Kanpei Ichiro is a brave man. Kanpei, dressed in black, stood there like a supreme hero, looking down on Kiran as if he held his life in his hands. Kiran, lying on the ground, tried to move and regain consciousness, but felt as if his body had completely broken. Kanpei, with light steps, approached Kiran, releasing more of his powerful aura with each step. Kanpei Ichiro, Sunland's top fighter! Konta Yasuda shouted, raising his fist like an enthusiastic fan. Kanpei Ichiro, Sunland's top fighter! The crowd's chant echoed across the pagoda of Nations Square. Chapter 10, 68. The Pagoda of Nations was once the pride of Sunland, built with stones from many countries. These stones were taken from significant mountains or buildings from other nations to form the tower's foundation, symbolizing a deeper meaning of pressing the other nations down. It was a beautiful dream for them, an emotional dream, a pursuit. To them, this tower was their pride. Now, in this place of pride, seeing Kiran York, who could be considered Dragonsland's top martial artist, being beaten was their greatest joy. It was their most passionate and ecstatic moment. To them, killing Kiran was not just about killing a person, but also about crushing Dragonsland's dream. The people of Sunland had imbued this battle with profound significance and deep aspirations. As Kanpei Ichiro got closer to Kiran, the coldness on his face grew more intense. An uncontrollable smile of joy appeared on his lips. He was about to kill Kiran. Kiran lay there, his whole body weak and numb. His mind seemed to have lost the ability to think, clinging only to the thought, I cannot die, as his sole support. Kanpei Ichiro reached Kiran and looked down at his paper-white face without a trace of pity. Instead, he slowly raised his foot, aiming to step on Kiran's face. For him, killing Kiran wasn't important. What mattered was humiliating him, making him wish he were dead. To him, this stomp wasn't just an insult to Kiran, but also a blow to the dignity of Kiran and Dragonsland. He imagined the scene of his foot on Kiran's face, Kiran struggling in vain, filled with despair and rage. It was a scene more cruel than death, and the ultimate humiliation for Dragonsland. Kiran looked at the dirt under Kanpei's foot, feeling deeply humiliated but powerless to resist. He closed his eyes, trying to gather his strength for one last strike or to accept his death. Yet, each time he managed to gather a bit of energy, it quickly dissipated, leaving him in despair. Closer. Kanpei Ichiro's foot was getting closer. Just as Kanpei's foot was about to land on Kiran's face, a brilliant red light emanated from one of the stones on the Pagoda of Nations. This light pierced through the clouds in the dark night, illuminating the sky like a bright sunrise. Everyone at the scene was stunned, and Kanpei's foot stopped in mid-air. The light seemed to transform into a sharp sword, aiming at Kiran. Feeling the warmth of the light, Kiran's determination to survive grew stronger. As the light touched Kiran, he felt enveloped in warmth, and his strength began to return. The words "I can't die" in his mind became even more determined and eager. His hand shot up, aiming to counter Kanpei Ichiro's foot. Sensing the threat, Kanpei quickly retreated, dodging Kiran's attack. Kiran, now with some strength, slowly stood up. Though far from his peak, he was no longer as weak as before. Hope reignited in his heart as he focused his energy, glaring at Kanpei Ichiro. Kanpei, filled with anger, regretted missing the perfect opportunity to kill Kiran. Seeing Kiran regain his strength, he adjusted his breathing, still determined to kill him. Kanpei, I'm ready to fight now, Kiran declared, though he knew he hadn't fully recovered. The recent humiliation had ignited a rage within him, pushing him to fight to the end. Kanpei, adjusting his breathing, sneered, "Then make your move. I'm not afraid of you." Without waiting, Kanpei launched himself at Kiran, his black-clad body splitting into three shadows in the darkness. Kiran's eyes flashed coldly as he identified the real Kanpei Ichiro and swung his fist with all his strength. Kanpei, shocked by Kiran's accuracy, quickly dodged. Though Kiran forced him back, he failed to land a decisive blow and felt his energy drain. Kanpei, seeing Kiran's exhaustion, regained his confidence. Again. He shouted, attacking Kiran once more. He now aimed to deplete the newfound energy Kiran had gained from the light. Eager to finish the fight, Kiran struck back, but Kanpei dodged again. Kiran, too tired to pursue, could only stand his ground. Kanpei circled Kiran, feigning attacks to wear him down. Minutes passed, and Kiran's exhaustion grew more apparent. Kanpei, unaffected, saw his opportunity. "Kiran, how will you fight back now?" he taunted, launching a full-force attack. As soon as Kanpei finished speaking, his body suddenly became violent, and the endless aura on his body swept toward Kiran York. The Sunland spectators, previously anxious, now cheered wildly as Kanpei's assault drew near. "Kanpei, kill Kiran York!" Konta Yasuda took the lead and shouted, "Kanpei, kill Kiran York!" The entire square instantly resounded. Kanpei Ichiro's attack was getting closer and closer. This time, he attacked with all his might, causing Kiran York to feel pressured. Just then, Kiran heard a dragon's roar within him. The sound resonated through the Pagoda of Nations and its surroundings, shaking everyone to their core. Some even fell to their knees in shock. The stones of the pagoda seemed to come alive, emitting beams of light that converged on Kiran. Seeing this, Kanpei was stunned. Chapter 1069. The stones on the Pagoda of Nations emitted beams of light like countless sharp swords, making Kanpei Ichiro hesitant to approach. These lights enveloped Kiran York tightly. The red light on Kiran's body, surrounded by white light, resembled a fiery sword or the tail fire of a rocket launching into the sky. The white light accentuated the scene, making it even more imposing. After calming down, Kanpei Ichiro was filled with anger. The red light had put immense pressure on him, nearly incapacitating him. Now, with so many lights, the pressure was even more overwhelming. Kanpei clenched his fists, then slowly opened his hands, palms facing the ground. A surge of internal energy emanated from his hands, and a katana emerged from the ground. With a swift motion, the katana was drawn into his hands. Holding the katana, Kanpei felt a sense of resolve. His eyes turned cold and sharp as he stared at the stationary Kiran. Both men exuded intense energy and auras of dominance. However, Kiran's energy seemed more soothing, like a continuous flow. Surrounded by the protective light, Kiran appeared safe, but incapable of attacking. He stood there quietly as if wearing an armor of light. Kanpei, unable to accept Kiran's gradual recovery and having missed the perfect opportunity to kill him, became even more enraged. "Sky slash!" Kanpei shouted, swinging his katana in the air. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh! White beams accompanied his swing, shooting toward Kiran like sword shadows. The Sunland spectators, who were initially disappointed by Kiran's protective light, regained their confidence seeing Kanpei's sky-slash attack. Kanpei Ichiro will win. Kanpei Ichiro will kill Kiran. Kanpei Ichiro is Sunland's top fighter. The enthusiastic Sunland people, led by Konta Yasuda, shouted in admiration. Bang, bang, bang. The force of the sky-slash struck Kiran, but the energy collided with the light around him, causing no harm. Instead, the light around Kiran seemed to counterattack, nullifying the power of the sky-slash. Kanpei felt an inexplicable anger and frustration, having hoped to regain his confidence with his fierce attack but finding it useless. Encased in the light, Kiran felt like he was basking in sunlight. The light's energy entered his body, gradually healing his wounds. Though the lifeblood of Lady Meiji and its coldness were gone, the weakness and pain persisted. Now the light's energy felt like countless needles stitching his wounds, slowly restoring his strength. Although Kiran remained still, he could feel his strength returning. The recent attack by Kanpei wasn't even his own defense, but the light's automatic reaction. Kanpei Ichiro attacked quickly. Observing the scene closely, Okajima realized Kiran was recovering and urged him to strike. Kanpei, equally aware of the urgency, continued his assault without responding to Okajima. He swung his katana again, launching another sky-slash. The sound of clashing energies filled the air, but Kiran's protective light nullified the attack. The Sunland spectators began to waver, feeling a tinge of fear. The memory of Kiran's Dragon Soul Sword during his duel with the Ninja Association still haunted them, and now, the red and white lights seemed like another Dragon Soul Sword, stirring their fears. The Dragon's Land viewers watching the live stream felt a glimmer of hope. They had believed Kiran would surely die given his extreme weakness. Seeing this resurgence, many clenched their fists in anticipation of Kiran's counterattack. Lillian Yanes, watching the live broadcast, felt tears welling up. Through her connection with the joyful Odyssey, she sensed Kiran's recovery, bringing her some relief. Kanpei Ichiro's attacks continued to be ineffective, heightening his frustration and unease. Desperate, he turned to the Sunland crowd and shouted, "Everyone leave and turn off the cameras." The spectators, unsure of his intentions but trusting he had a special plan, began to retreat. Konta Yasuda, anxious to see Kiran dead, quickly ordered the journalists to stop filming. The journalist recalled the battle between Kiran and the Ninja Association, and knew that some things would be embarrassing for the people of the Sunland if they broadcasted it live, so they turned off their cameras. Once the journalists complied, Konta Yasuda and Okajima exchanged knowing glances and retreated, leading the others away. The pagoda of Nations Square emptied, leaving only Kanpei Ichiro and Kiran. Kanpei's eyes were filled with rage as he stared at the unmoving Kiran, who seemed oblivious to his presence. Taking deep breaths, Kanpei coldly declared, "Kiran, you must die here today in Sunland." Kiran remained unresponsive, focused on the healing light. Kanpei, feeling increasingly humiliated and enraged by Kiran's indifference, resolved that if he failed today, his reputation as Sunland's top fighter would be destroyed. Deciding that they would both die, he opened his hands and slowly unbuttoned his clothes, revealing his body strapped with explosives. Chapter 1070. Although Konta Yasuda and Okajima had retreated to a distance, their eyes remained fixed on the scene. From afar and in the dark, they couldn't see the explosives on Kanpei Ichiro. However, seeing him open his clothes with a resolute look, they knew he intended to perish with Kiran York. Many Sunland people felt indignant and angry, realizing they had squandered an excellent chance to kill Kiran. Nevertheless, the thought of killing Kiran still filled them with grim satisfaction. Kanpei Ichiro steadily approached Kiran, his hands already on the explosives. A slight pull would result in a sky full of stars and a thunderous explosion. He even began to envision dying together with Kiran. Although he knew it was disgraceful, as Sunland's top fighter, if he couldn't kill Kiran, who could? To him, even if it meant being shameless, eliminating Kiran was preserving a shred of dignity for Sunland. Having resolved everything in his mind, Kanpei Ichiro moved with unwavering determination and swiftness, eagerly anticipating the explosion. The distant Sunland people witnessing this had mixed emotions of excitement and complexity. Kiran had become a nightmare for them. In their eyes, Kiran's existence brought shame to Sunland. Killing him was paramount. Among the crowd were also disguised Dragon's Land people broadcasting the event live. Dragon's Land viewers, recognizing the explosives on Kanpei Ichiro, grew anxious as he closed in on Kiran. Many shut their eyes and covered their mouths, fearing the imminent explosion. Lillian Yanes, continually channeling the power of the joyful Odyssey, desperately tried to alert Kiran. However, she soon despaired, unable to sense any response from him. Kiran seemed like a meditative monk isolated from the outside world. With hands clasped, Lillian silently prayed for Kiran to react and escape. "Let's go to hell together, Kiran," Kanpei Ichiro shouted as he sprinted toward Kiran. His black figure stood out in the white light, resembling a black sword against the radiant background. His face twisted into a fierce and malevolent expression. As Kanpei's body neared the white light surrounding Kiran, the white light suddenly shot out like countless swords. Kanpei felt his body blown away by a powerful gust. Despite his efforts to approach Kiran and perish with him, the light's force made him fall back as if beaten by wind and rain. Kanpei, his body like a kite with a broken string, was sent flying toward the Pagoda of Nations. Realizing the explosives could detonate and destroy the pagoda, he tried to control his breath and body to avoid a collision. It was too late. His body struck the pagoda with a loud thud. His last bit of rationality kept him from pressing the detonator, knowing the pagoda was a symbol of Sunland's spirit. However, the severe impact and pressure caused the explosives to go off. Boom! A deafening explosion rocked the pagoda of Nation Square. The tower swayed violently as if buffeted by a storm. Kanpei's body was torn into countless pieces, blood and flesh flying everywhere. His head remained intact, eyes wide open, witnessing the destruction he caused. Kanpei Ichiro's eyes widened as he fixed his gaze on this scene. He hoped the pagoda wouldn't collapse. Crash! The sound of breaking glass came from the pagoda. Kanpei's eyes filled with horror and fear. Had he destroyed the pagoda of nations? The realization that he might become Sunland's greatest sinner filled him with rage. However, he could only watch, unable to speak. Rumble. The upper half of the pagoda of nations began to collapse, crashing onto the lower half. The base of the tower echoed with the sound of shattering glass. The entire square shook as if struck by an earthquake. More beams of white light surged toward Kiran, clustering around him. The red light on Kiran's body, guiding the white light, seemed like an endless source of power. The Sunland people witnessing this were stunned and speechless. Watching the live stream, Sunland viewers felt anger and humiliation. The pagoda of nations, a spiritual symbol, was gone in an instant. Meanwhile, Dragon's Land viewers and those from other countries rejoiced. The pagoda of nations had been a symbol of shame for many. Now that shame had vanished, and they felt a renewed sense of dignity. "Set off the fireworks," Park Sung-nam shouted to his men. His subordinates, eyes filled with heat and joy, quickly took out prepared fireworks and set them off. Despite the angry Sunland people around them, they didn't care. Bang, bang, bang! The sound of fireworks filled the square, illuminating the night sky. The Sunland people felt a deep, humiliating anger.